one that I want. I need you like the air that I breathe. I don't want to want the one that I want. I need you like the air that I breathe. Poison secret, how it sickens. Still I feed him. How I crave him. How I do. I don't want to want the one that I want. I need you like the air that I breathe. I don't want to want the one that I want. I need you like the air that I breathe. The air that I breathe. Oh, the air that I breathe. The air that I breathe.
Hey guys, hey luminaries, welcome back for night 2. Sorry about that last night. I selected the wrong date when I was entering the information on YouTube for the stream, so I apologize for that. But anyway, we're here now, so that's what's important. And tonight we're talking about serial killer John Edward Robinson. And he is also known as the first internet serial killer and goes by the name also the Slave Master. He was into sadomasochism. He was a sadist and a serial killer. If you guys hear anything, as usual, banging, barking, music, kids, laundry, life's going on around me, so I apologize. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and read a couple things. Let's see what I've got going here. So, okay. So this is just kind of an intro. It's from True Crime Magazine. And I was a little taken back by this this website. I was excited to find it, True Crime Mag, and I was, stoked. But I'll show you here in a minute that pictures that they have were really inappropriate, and I can't show them on YouTube, but so I'll scroll past them quickly. But yeah, they're bad. So anyway, John Edwards Robinson, dubbed as the internet's first serial killer, John Edward Robinson, a psychopath sexual sadist, killed 8 young women who he met on the internet to fulfill his lust as a self-proclaimed slave master. So I do want to say some of these articles have contradictory information. I don't know that he met all 8 of these women on the internet. There were other women he met before, but it was a little confusing because the articles would list some that they believe that he did kill, and there's lots of evidence to support that, but he didn't get charged with it. So it's just a little bit confusing. He did murder at least 8 people, and I believe they suspect more. On June 2000, Robinson was arrested at his Kansas farm after a woman filed a sexual battery complaint against him, and another charged him with stealing her sex toys. Apparently, it was $500 worth of sex toys, which must have been a really large suitcase. On June 3rd, detectives went to John Edward Robinson's 17-acre farm with 3 search and rescue dog teams. The dog teams then systematically searched the grounds and led investigators to some barrels near a shed. When the 2 barrels were opened, detectives discovered 2 decomposing bodies. And they show the pictures here. I'm going to close this out because I don't want to take a risk of showing that on YouTube. I will show you pictures here that were, you'll hear later folks talk, or me talking about a storage shed or storage facility that he used, and this is it. This is his unit at the facility, and you'll hear later if or what anything was found in there. These are the barrels that the dogs alerted on, and 2 of them, like they said, had decomposing bodies in them. And then these are the barrels. They took them back to the lab. It looks like they have 3 barrels there. The other article said 2, I believe. I could be wrong. Anyway. So here's a little bit, this article is nice. It gives a little bit about who he was and, you know, his persona that he presented. So this is in Kansas City, Kansas, by the way. Internet's first serial killer, John Edward Robinson, internet slave master. To his neighbors, John Edward Robinson was a church-going family man, but on June 2nd, 2000, Kansas City police arrested Robinson at his farm after a woman filed a sexual battery complaint against him and another charged him with stealing sex toys. After obtaining search warrants, investigators found the decaying bodies of 2 women, later identified as Isabella Levica and Suzette Troughton, in 2 85 chemical drums on his property. When the bodies of 3 more women were found in storage units, police began to unravel the world of Robinson, a con man, embezzler, and sadomasochistic killer whose habit of luring victims in bondage chat rooms earned him the moniker the Internet's first serial killer. Back in 1964, Robinson, who had been attending school to become an X-ray technician but ended up dropping out, moved to Kansas City and married Nancy Jo Lynch. The couple had 3 children together, and on the surface, Robinson maintained a perfect family facade. During this time, Robinson was a baseball coach, a scoutmaster, and a Sunday school teacher who was active in local charities. But behind the scenes, Robinson had a long criminal history. He was arrested for the first time in Kansas City in 1969 after he embezzled $33,000 from the medical practice he got a job at of Dr. Wallace Graham. He received 3 years probation for this. I will say also that he forged his documentation as being an X-ray technician. He was working as an X-ray tech, but he hadn't graduated school. Also, part of his philanthropy, if you want to call it that, he also won Man of the Year, Kansas City's Man of the Year or something like that. It was a breakfast celebration in honor of him, and it ends up that he actually made the whole thing up. He paid for the breakfast celebration. He printed off the document and the certification, and he had a company that was sponsoring the event, but they were had nothing to do with any type of award, but it looked official because he had this big company backing up the event. And come to find out, he orchestrated the whole damn thing. So anyway, just a side note. In 1970, Robinson violated probation by moving back to Chicago without his probation officer's permission. He took a job as an insurance salesman at the R.B. Jones Company, but in 1971, he was arrested again for embezzling funds from the firm. Sorry, I'm trying to clean my glasses, you guys. His probation was extended and then extended again in 1975 after yet another arrest on securities and mail fraud in connection with a bogus medical consulting company he founded. Sorry about that. In 1982, he served 60 days in jail on charges of embezzlement and check forgery. After his release, he formed yet another bogus medical practice, this time focused on hydroponics, and swindled $25,000 from a friend who desperately needed the money for his dying wife's medical care. At every turn, he foiled authorities by being what Vanity Fair called a pathological thief, dodging easily through the system. At this time, he reportedly began sexually propositioning his neighbors' wives and claimed to have become the slave master of a secret BDSM society called the International Council of Masters, whose victims were allegedly tortured and raped. I'd like to reword that because there is a whole community of folks in BDSM and enjoy sadomasochism, and the folks who are the masochist role, they know what they're signing up for, and it's a lot of times something they actually enjoy. So I wouldn't call them victims unless they were being assaulted and it was going past their comfort zone without against their will. In 1984, having started two more fraudulent shell companies, Robinson hired Paula Godfrey, 19. She was an accomplished ice skater, a really good student, very pretty girl. She told friends and family that she would be employed as a sales representative and that Robinson was sending her for training. She disappeared, and several days later, Godfrey's parents received a typewritten letter with Godfrey's signature at the bottom stating that she was okay and did not want to see her family. Her suspicious family went to the police, but since there was no evidence of foul play, the investigation was closed because this woman was 19 years old, and there was a letter. They did say it was her signature, but they thought it was strange that it was typed. In 1985, using the name John Osborne, he met Lisa, and some people say Stassi, and some people say Stacy. I'm going to pronounce it Stassi. Met Lisa Stassi and her 4-month-old daughter, Tiffany, at a battered women's shelter in Kansas City. He promised Lisa a job and an apartment in Chicago and asked her to sign several sheets of blank stationery. A few days later, Robinson contacted his brother and sister-in-law, who had been unable to adopt a baby through traditional channels, and informed them that he knew of a baby whose mother had committed suicide. For $5,500 in legal fees, Don and Helen Robinson received a baby, who was later determined via DNA testing to be Tiffany Stassi. Baby Tiffany's biological mother, Lisa Stassi, was never heard from again. I saw an interview with Tiffany Stassi as well. Her name is Heather now, and the adoptive family that she grew up with, that was the uh, family member of this serial killer. So anyway, well, it was his brother that he sold the baby to, but they treated her really well, and she had a good life coming up. But she still struggles with the fact that her mother was taken away, and her biological mother was taken away like this, of course. In 1987, Catherine Clampett, 27, left her child with her parents in Texas and moved to Kansas City to find employment. She was hired by Robinson, who reportedly promised her extensive travel and a new wardrobe. She vanished in June and has never been heard from again. From 1987 to 1993, Robinson was behind bars on fraud convictions. While incarcerated, he met 49-year-old Beverly Bonner, the prison librarian, and after he was released, she divorced her husband, who was the prisoner physician, and moved to Kansas to work for him. Robinson arranged for Bonner's alimony checks to be forwarded to them, and he kept cashing them for years. And Bonnie was never seen again, of course. Robinson began to take his scams online by pursuing websites using the name Slave Master. So he didn't really go online till about 1994, but he had been an active serial killer since the 1980s. What was it, 82? 84. Paula Godfrey was his first victim, and that was in 1984. So from 1984 till, till 1993 or 94 when he got out of prison, he was still killing. He just wasn't using the internet yet. It wasn't readily available. Robinson began to take his scams online by pursuing websites using the name Slave Master, looking for sexually submissive women. Sheila Faith, 45, responded. She was thrilled when Robinson offered to pay medical expenses for her 15-year-old daughter, Debbie, who had spina bifida. In 1994, the mother and daughter moved to Kansas City and disappeared. Incredibly, Robinson was becoming a popular figure in the online chat rooms. In 1999, he offered a job and bondage relationship to Isabella Lewica, a 21-year-old Polish immigrant. When she moved to Kansas City, Robinson gave her an engagement ring and brought her to the county registrar, where they paid for a marriage license that was never picked up. She also signed a 150-item slave contract that gave Robinson almost total control over every aspect of her life, including her bank accounts. During the summer of 1999, she vanished as well. Suzette Troughton, a nurse, also disappeared during the time after moving to Kansas to be another one of Robinson's sex slaves. By 1999, police were beginning to link Robinson to some of the missing persons investigations. In 2000, he was arrested, and don't forget, he was arrested because of $500 worth of sex toys. That's what brought him down, was the sex toys. Life is funny sometimes, isn't it? Searched his farm. They found the bodies of Beverly Bonner and Sheila Faith and her daughter, Debbie Faith, in storage units. In 2002, Robinson stood trial in Kansas for the murders of Suzette Troughton, Isabella Lewica, and Lisa Stassi, along with multiple lesser charges. After the longest criminal trial in Kansas history, he was convicted on all accounts and received a death sentence. Somehow, Robinson had remained married to his wife all this time. She finally divorced him in 2005. She's probably scared of him. But investigators say this: even now, it is unclear exactly how much she may have known about Robinson's activities. He was disposing of their bodies there at the house. I'm sure that he was also doing whatever he did with them there at the house as well. So, in 2015, the court upheld Robinson's death sentence and rejected dozens of appeals claims stemming from his 2002 trial. But the court did throw out one of his 2 capital murder convictions as well as a first-degree murder conviction. In 2006, the body of a young woman was found in an area of Iowa where Robinson reportedly used to have a business partner. Police believe that there may be more victims who have not yet been identified. So this guy is pretty prolific. There's a little timeline here. Wikipedia did a great job. 1984 started 2 fraudulent shell companies. 85, using the name John Osborne, he met Lisa Stassi with their 4-month-old daughter, Tiffany, at a women's shelter in Kansas City. He promised her a job in Chicago, apartment, daycare for her baby, asked her to sign the several sheets of blank stationery. Do you guys remember Paula Godfrey, her mother received, or Godby received those letters that were typed but had her daughter's signature on it? So you can kind of see here. What's interesting also are his previous arrests. Over time, Robinson became increasingly careless and did progressively poor job covering his tracks. By 1999, he attracted the attention of authorities in both Kansas and Missouri as his name popped up in more and more missing persons investigations. They don't talk about his past. Yeah, unfortunately, they don't talk about his past. Early crimes. They don't really list them all out here, though. But he had a lot of crimes for embezzling. He stole like I don't know. I don't want to exaggerate. Was it 6,200 stamps? I think it was something to that effect from one employer, and he was opened this charitable organization, and that's how he ended up with Stassi and her daughter. It was through that. A hospital actually recommended his organization. It's amazing. You guys, so, really that's his story. But why I'm telling this story is because it's interesting to think about serial killers and how and why they work. And I stumbled across this online. I'm going to show you the cover here just so I don't have to scroll all the way back. So this is an FBI, Department of Justice FBI field manual, and it's called Serial Murder: Pathways for Investigations by the U.S. Department of Justice. And I stumbled across this online, and it ended up being really interesting. And I'll show you a couple things from the book because, Chris G brought this case to my attention. He said that Doris, I believe, brought it to his attention. But so all credit to them. Interestingly, though, Chris thought, this might be exactly how Bridge Guy got started. Just this kind of sadist type murder. And, it's hard to say because we don't really have enough evidence to tell us, as none's really been released. Also, Evansdale murders, which I believe are connected. And that's what I'd like to kind of just talk about quickly. I'm going to do a whole video about it. Graz was going to have me on to discuss the similarities between Evanston and Delphi, and I have Google Maps stuff all set up and everything for that, and some statistics here from the FBI, but I don't know when that's going to happen, so I'm just kind of hanging tight, and if it doesn't happen here soon, then I'll just go ahead and put a video out. Okay. Where is it? We're getting close. Sorry, y'all. I had it sitting there, but it must have reset. So this is interesting. When you talk about, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. When you talk about serial killers, their victims, this is the age range right here. You see 8 to 13 years old only accounts for 3.3% of the murders performed by these serial murders in the study that they did. And the study did include hundreds of murderers. It wasn't just, 4 or 5, or serial killers, I should say. So it's interesting that only 3.3% went after children 8 to 13 years old. And here we have Delphi and Evansdale that have both girls are the ones in Evansdale are 8 and 10 years old. And then, of course, the Delphi girls were 13 and 14. So very weird or strange that two randomly or not associated people would do the same type of crime when the odds of it are so low of happening. Racial breakdown of the victim, 60% of victims were white. And I thought, well, it's interesting. Maybe we can learn a little bit about what the offender might look like. White, 52.2%. And then the next largest number of folks in a group that performed that were serial killers were black, and that was at 38%. So half of all serial murders or serial killers are white. And they also tend to have a history of smaller crimes previous to their murders. And there's this nice chart here where you can see, if we scroll down this 1, 2, 3, third column, you can see that, actually, let's go to the second column, sorry. 42 had been arrested for assault in the past, 38 theft and larceny. Let's see, 31 other sex offenses, 28 burglary. So it's interesting that the crimes here listed actually fit the case that we were just talking about. It's very similar, isn't it, as far as the small petty crimes before the murder started. And then he continued with the small petty crimes. But this might give us a little insight into who is Bridge Guy. I'm betting, based on what I've read in this so far, that he's a white male somewhere, 25 to 40 at the oldest, and has a history of misdemeanors, that it was a sexually motivated event, and that there was no DNA at the scene. Interestingly enough, here in this article, it talks about how many of the victims were sexually assaulted, and it says that out of all of them that were sexually assaulted, that there was only DNA left, and less than half of them had DNA anywhere on them of the person that was the assailant. So a lot of time they're giving us here what types of relationships the offender and the victim have. So customer client has the most at 41.5%. This includes sex workers, and so that is high because sex workers are the most often targeted by serial killers. But the next number down is just complete strangers, and that accounts for 31.5% of killings by serial killers. And then the primary approaches utilized by the offenders were and this is astounding, 65.4% was a ruse or a con, like, hey, you guys, you can't be there. Come over here and then we'll cross over. You'll be fine, but you can't be over here. This is private property, a ruse like that. And I wonder if there was some sort of ruse in Evansville because there was no evidence of any type of struggle in Evansdale. The bikes were just left on the side of the bike path. Anyway, I thought that these things were really, this booklet or field guide was really interesting, and it helped me kind of understand what type of sicko we could possibly be dealing with, and maybe some characteristics of the sicko, so that we could maybe have a little more information, since the police department is being so close to the vest on this. So anyway, I'm going to kind of open up for questions if there are any. And I'm sorry if you'd asked questions earlier. I couldn't see my screen. I had stuff up on it. So my apologies for that. Okay. Hey, Mel, I just finished up. I went through it too quick. I usually take forever, and I'm really not focused. And so, yeah, Chris, this case is disturbing because there are a lot of victims they suspect that just haven't been discovered. Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, I would get distracted, kind of like that, and would be talking, and then the case would be so discombobulated. I don't know that anybody could even follow it in the first place. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad he's where he needs to be. But I think it's a gift to us as well. We can possibly learn from him. Yeah, it's very strange. You think BG is a pillar of the community? I think he's a pillar of the community as far as, he's supposedly probably a good family man, and, goes to church and all that good stuff just to look good. But I don't know if it's in Delphi. I feel like it's not in Delphi. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the case tonight. And kind of tying it in with the FBI field guide for serial killers investigations, and kind of looking at their statistics. I did think that it's really interesting that only 3.3% of serial killers kill children 13 and under. So what are the odds of Evansdale and Delphi happening in such a similar way at that? So anyway, there was something that was said in the FBI field guide that I didn't show, but it said it's very important to start looking at patterns like that and discovering whether you do have one individual and not just writing it off so quickly. So I thought that was interesting. I do know that Delphi and Evansdale officers and detectives have shared notes. So clearly they think there's some similarities as well and have some suspicion, even though they say it's not connected. I'm sure that they feel that there's some suspicion. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made that trip. Also, I believe they went to Quantico at the FBI. So this is kind of a big deal, you guys, and I just don't think that people are aware. I feel like this case will get solved, but I think it's bigger than what we think it is. So wanted to kind of take it in that direction and just, hear what people have to say. Oh, really? I'll have to watch that, Mel. Season 1, episode 10 on Netflix, Criminal Minds. I know I've already seen it, but oh, interesting. Oh, hi, Hoosier Cold Case. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Tanya, thank you for keeping an eye out and letting me know. So no questions. I appreciate you guys all coming. And as always, we can kick it in my Discord. Um, Chris has a question. Oops, wrong one. I have a question about this case. Do you think that he's done it in other states? So, yes, he has done it in other states. That's proven. He's admitted to that. Um, if we're talking about Delphi and Evansdale, yes, I agree there too, that someone is going interstate. I want to mention, well, I don't want to mention it tonight because I'd rather save it for my video about comparisons, but there's some pretty profound coincidences. So, all right. Oh, thank you, Amber. There's my Discord link. So we can always continue the conversation there. I appreciate your support. You guys are lovely, and thank you for coming. Love you. Bye.